and say no, that these people should pay jizya or tribute, عن يد وهم صاغرون. Again, we come to the translation. People who do that, or who try to make this interpretation, are exactly like the same people who pointed to the Bible and said, this justifies the Crusades.
Of course.
And the reason why you get this erroneous type of interpretation is oppression. The government is preventing even what the West call moderate Islamic movement from operating openly. Under that oppression, by arresting, torturing people, up to killing even in prisons, always you provide an atmosphere for these extremist opinions to arise. Imam Shafi'i, this is not a new thing. When he explained صاغرون, he said many people have misunderstood the word صاغرون من الصغار, that means that they are humiliated. And he said this is very erroneous. And said linguistically, actually, صاغرون means يقبلون أن تجري عليهم أحكام الإسلام, that they accepted to live under the Islamic State, under Islamic law, except of course for the areas where they have their own laws. That's صغار. It is not humiliation, as some in the past have interpreted. This is not new. This goes back to Imam Shafi'i. So this is the problem. The solution
I
is
agree.
education.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And open scholarly discussion.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Added to that, they can revoke that covenant if they wish to.
Yeah.
So it is not compulsory on them to live under that covenant.
But it's compulsory on you to
It's compulsory on the state to provide the protection if they accept that protection. If they don't, they can live without
Don't
it.
misunderstand me. All I'm saying is, I mean, there are a lot
No,
of
we're
Copts
clarifying
who
the
would
point.
like to go back to the dhimmi state because they find the present regime is very oppressive.
If they apply it right,
You know, of course.
if they apply it right and Islamically, in perspective, it provides protection. That's all what it does.
Then I'm agreeing with you completely. All I'm saying is that in both religions, we have room for interpretation.
But there is a minimum. This is a point I would like to address here. Islam really has spoken extensively about the rights of the people of the book, in particular, the Jews and the Christians. And spoke extensively, specifically, about the rights on Muslims as neighbors, as wives, as children, so on and so forth. So, beyond the minimum stated, there is room for interpretation, of course. But the guarantee in the text is for the minimum protection that provides peace, provides room for dialogue, and so on and so forth. One of the points that you raised about theological differences, no religion is accepted beyond Islam. That theological difference is recognized in Quran, yet the rights are still mentioned there for people of different religions, which means it is a lesson for Muslims not to withdraw or rather draw the theological differences into the political and social structure of the society so that in a degree or a way deprive the minority citizens from the political and social rights that Islam gave them. So the theological difference is not part of the political structure, is not part of the social rights. Indeed, Islam makes so clear, as mentioned before, that those rights ought not to be abrogated by anybody, ought not to be violated by anybody, even if they disagreed totally. And the Quran quoted the disagreements and quoted the reasoning for disagreement. You must have read the Quran talking about why Christians say about this, about Jesus, so on and so forth, and the answer to that with full respect to Jesus, to his mother, to the whole issue, a very scholarly discussion, if you will.
No, I want you to know, I want to start right off. Please don't misunderstand me. There is no question that Christians have had a better life under Islam than Muslims have had under, Spain or any of the other. I'm not saying that. Please don't misunderstand.
No,
Absolutely.
I understand you.
Okay. What I'm saying is that there is in Egypt at the moment some literature which is very extremist, which interprets certain verses of the Quran that are scaring.
There is also
the Christians.
There is also those literature that say Egypt is a Coptic country and Muslims ought to live out of this place that is ours. Go to Arabia if you
I haven't seen it, but I would love to get hold of it. I'm looking for it.
I
Do you
can
have
get you some of it.
I would love it.
Yes, it is in New Jersey anyway.
New Jersey, yes. Oh, yes. Now I
And
know.
it comes out of Bani Mazar and all of these area names.
Well,
I don't
agree.
think we should judge anything by New Jersey.
No, we're just bringing Egypt with the whole of it
No,
here,
no.
which is a very vivid picture. You have those on both sides.
Oh, I know.
And I think
I started by
that
saying
we
that.
agree that they do not represent neither the correct understanding of either religion nor the correct stand of the religion.
Mm-hmm.
And also to distinguish between the interpretation of ignorant people. Quite frankly, somebody, a young man, for example, who just read a couple of books and he says, I interpret. And between the mainstream of scholars, check with variety of even schools of jurisprudence all over the Muslim world or in Egypt and see how many people would agree with this. So it's like I said, it's a very extreme case of people under oppression just coming up with some of the crazy ideas.
No, I agree.
Maybe it's
But
the,
that's what I get hit by every time I lecture. Those are the questions that are raised.
Well, those are very, very real questions.
yeah,
But
they're
Dallas,
valid
you were mentioning the concerns of say, the Christians in the Middle East. And you may want to elaborate on this, because my feeling is that when there are those in the government, say in Egypt, who want to say that Sharia, go back to Sharia, as the only source of law, i.e. go back to the Dhimmi system and so on, the Christians all head out and they fast and they pray, and that's the last thing they want. Okay? Now, you know,
Who said that? There is absolutely no ground anywhere in any school of thought for 1400 years that says the Dhimmi should fast and drink. The whole presentation I'm saying that the Dhimmis are exempt even from punishments that are inflicted on Muslims, and they have no less rights, except in very rare exception, like being a head of the state, because the head of the state in Islam protects faith and run the affairs.
Maybe
in a very rare situation like that, otherwise they have the same right, they're not obliged to follow Muslim faith, and they're exempt from. I'll give you one example.
No, excuse me. My point was that if they want to make the Sharia the only source of law, positive law, that the Christians ask, well, what does this mean actually in detail? And we've heard a lot about there's so much clarity,
Yes.
but many of them say if we want a detailed description of what this would mean in
Ask a specific
particular
question.
cases, you see, they say that no answer is forthcoming.
I think the problem again is lack of understanding what Sharia is and stands for. Applying Sharia means that you don't interfere in their personal law. But they understand it differently. But that's lack of understanding. They think that Sharia means we have to follow Muslim law in every respect. No, it is part of Sharia to let them have their own Sharia, if you might, well, in their personal affairs.
If I could interject, although I'm really reluctant because this is
Getting interesting.
It's a good discussion, I think. I was asked some time ago to write a little treatise on religious freedom in the Middle East. And that already was a challenge to write a little treatise on religious freedom in the Middle East. But one of the distinctions that I found useful in doing that is in talking about what we mean by freedom, and I think this applies then both to both the Middle East and elsewhere, and the United States. That's where I'd like to shift some of this discussion back as well, is what do we mean by religious freedom? I understand that as being both a freedom from certain things, and Dr. Badawi has certainly referred to those limitations upon the powers of the government, an Islamic government, the Sharia faithful government, what it can and cannot do in terms of the dhimmis. And that's fine. Freedom from persecution, freedom from desecration of religious places, freedom from interference in worship. There are all kinds of freedom froms. Where I think the difficulty comes, and I think it's a difficulty both here and elsewhere, both in this country and in the Middle East and elsewhere, is in a second kind of freedom, which is the freedom to do certain things. For I see in both traditions a desire to create in their society something that is faithful to the religious tradition. I mean, I see that impulse in the United States among Christians who say we really need to make this a more Christian country. We should institute Christian prayers in the public schools because